Fear and greed run through the wire. Candles climb and then expire. Our edges cut from deep profile, sharp and clean by every buyer. He conquers the markets, he turns water into wine. His timing flows where chaos turns divine. Cut sharp enough to time the sign. Yeah, this man's no common trader. He commands the market's numbers. We call him Chef Bailey. The market bends beneath his flame. Fear and greed run through the wire. Candles climb and then expire. Our edges cut from deep profile, sharp and clean by every buyer. Markets move, they twist and swing. Every tick can burn or bring. Ryan keeps calm, he trusts his thing. The charts tell him everything. But when T1 makes ding, 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 the futures spread their hidden wing. And he is ready for anything. Vic's still looking like a restless king.
Ryan once said,
trading is like going to war in a sense, right? So you don't go to war without a plan.
this is why Ryan built a proven trading plan, and it's already transforming lives. These reviews from real members say it all, directly from Trustpilot, where our members give 5-star reviews about the Substack, course, and community. Don't trade without a plan. Subscribe to Substack now. Conquer the markets.
Welcome back, everybody. It is Wednesday, and it was a slow and grindy day, right to the upside. We started the day with an announcement that we had relative low volume, and as usual, when you're grinding higher on low volume, they continue to go that direction. It was a very tricky day, especially for me as well. We knew the pivots that we had to be above, and we're going to go over the exact data and figure out what exactly happened and what tomorrow is going to play out like. So first, I want to say hello to Alex and Kostas. Thanks for joining. There's a bunch more people who are in here, and I didn't catch names, so my apologies on the way through. So Trump has done it again. Apparently, his State of the Union address was pretty good last night. I have been listening to Fox News because it's all my dad listens to. It's on all day long, and so I hear it all day. And of course, I know they're extremely biased, but apparently he rocked it out, and his polls were up in CNN and the whole 9 yards, which CNN's always against him. So very interesting to hear on that front for sure. So anyways, with that being said, we continue to truck higher. And I want to let you guys know something. I was actually 15 minutes getting the trade plan out this morning, and it wasn't because I was late doing the trade plan. I actually took an hour and a half to do the trade plan this morning. It took me a very long time because as we came into the day today, I saw that we were essentially moving higher, very similar to what I talked about yesterday. I basically pointed out the fact that I thought we were going to go up to the 69, 65 area. That's exactly where we traversed to. In fact, that's exactly where we closed at. So it just took all stinking day to get there, to move the 40 points to make that happen. But the trade plan did play out exactly as I anticipated, even from yesterday. But I wanted to give real preliminary caution because, again, I've talked about this time and time again with us being in this massive balance and having a dispute in data between SPX and ES. It makes it extremely difficult to really, pinpoint it down. We know that SPX is essentially our index, main index. ES is the derivative, but I use the two of them to try to balance. And of course, VIX is our, let's just say, our tiebreaker. And so VIX was really the main component for us today. And we're going to get into exactly that and how we were able to basically, I was short quite a few times today, just let it be known, but at least I didn't let it get too crazy because I was watching VIX and I just had the feeling that I'm like, okay, we're going to come to our spot. VIX is, coming down pretty good. Let's get into the trade plans and let's figure out exactly what we did today and what we're going to do tomorrow. So first and foremost, let's just go right into here. Actually, you know what? As usual, I forgot to start this. you guys know I got to do this. Hang on. You know this is coming. Everybody knows this is coming. If you are not following me currently, make sure you do so. Ryan Bailey Edge across all the socials, YouTube, TradingView, Substack, and X. And we're streaming on all three of those platforms right now. So if you're on here, make sure you like, retweet, follow me along, and tell your friends. That's what's up. It's all about having the professional trade plan, understanding every day, go into this with a plan, and just making it work. So make sure you follow me, like, and all that stuff. And I know I've been talking about having a new indicator on TradingView for like a week, and I'm going to get it done. I'm just busy. I apologize. As you can tell, I'm actually still in my parents' house for another couple of weeks, taking care of my pops. You can probably see my mom walking around and back hauling in groceries and such. A little out of my element right now. I got a few other things in the works as I'm taking care of my dad. So, things have just been busy. So my apologies. And let's get right into it. Let's get into the trade plan. So here we go. Let's start right here. Boom. All right. So today, as usual, we always start with the market context. And I threw a big, disclosure out there for everybody because I wanted to let everybody know, and I've never done this before, but I really wanted to let everybody know, especially because I was late putting the plan out, to just really understand this. I mean, I talked about this yesterday in the post-market breakdown. I've kind of talked about it all week. And, so let's just go ahead and get into it. What's up, Mark? Good to see you. Alex, pleasure. So the 69.64 resistance, guys. We talked about the 69.03 make it or break it spot before. We talked about our three important pivots, as you guys know, which we'll get into here shortly, and the massive 69.64 resistance. Well, like I said, that's actually was our big magnet for today, as that was the point of control for the weekly, which we gravitated right at the end of the day. Actually, we touched it in the last 10 minutes of the day and pretty much closed right at it or right underneath it, which will be really interesting. And we're going to talk about a few things because NVIDIA had earnings after the bell. And last time this happened, we had an interesting open, even though we were crazy bullish. So I just, we're gonna pivot here a little bit here shortly. But like I wanted to say here, this was an important notation for the readers. I normally don't do this. If you guys ever see this, please take note of it, because that means I'm deep in thought here, because as we're starting to move up, I was continuing to express my bias, both long and short term. And I really wanted you guys to read this in depth because we were getting conflicting signals between SPX and ES. I had ES telling me we could possibly see more down. SPX is saying, hey, we held the daily leg. We can make new all-time highs. And so with that, I really needed to, express that to you guys and understand that, hey, we can go to 69.64. What happens there is everything. We need to watch VIX. And so starting over here, check this out. Our trend to the high time frame lean is still to the downside. Well, you couldn't tell today, but the short time frame trend intraday perspective was potentially to the upside as long as we hold certain levels this morning. Well, I think we pretty much established that was what happened today. So again, we have a lot of times we have high time frame outlooks, and then we have our intraday outlooks. And you can obviously, in a massive bearish scenario, you can still have uptrend days and so on and so forth as they squeeze. So that's how I play. But because I analyze on the high time frame, obviously we trade intraday. So this is how I was putting it together for you guys. We came into the day first off with insanely low relative volume. Look at this. We came into the day with 36% relative low volume, and we even ended the day even worse. We were like 46% negative relative volume. It was really bad. So again, coming into this, and I just want to recap this so you guys can understand going through this next time. We were currently sitting in the massive 4-week balance area that we talked about yesterday on the stream and yet in yesterday's plan. And technically we moved higher. When we moved up, we were in a 6 or 7 week balance area, putting us right back in the middle of a huge range. Okay. When we are in balance areas like this, like I said yesterday, it makes it very hard to pick the exact direction long term. And so we have to rely on our above below levels to monitor momentum. Well, yesterday, as you guys know, we had some serious levels. We had the 57 weekly, the 68.83 weekly, and the 69.03 weekly. And I said, until you guys are probably tired of hearing this, but above the 69.03 weekly was in fact our massive momentum shift to the upside. As you can see here, I even had this in the trade plan because there was a substantial 4-hour level there that I thought we could pull back to and play, which happened to also be the gap fill. So that was looking pretty sexy to me this morning. As you guys know, we just did a gap and go and that didn't happen. So here was the SPX discrepancy. Okay. SPX is not lost on the daily time frame and continues to guide us higher. Boom. Now it was the complete inverse for the ES futures, which has continued to lose support It gives me one more challenge to deal with, right? Based on SPX, we could push to all-time highs if we get above 69.1411. Well, let me just pull this over. I didn't take a picture of it. But as you can see, let me just pull this over right here. 69.1411 was literally where we opened above. We started here. Okay. Now we expected a reaction, or I expected a reaction here that happened, but it didn't pay very much. But it did happen, which we'll get into shortly. I was essentially insinuating if this smacks and gets back below this, she's toasty. Okay. Well, we started above it and pushed up, and we continued to ride. Right. So let's continue this. So if this happens, SPX has a high loss at 39 and then to 69.45. I expect a reaction here. If SPX stays above 69.11 or 69.14 after reacting to the 39 area, we could push to all-time highs, right? Put it right out there for everybody right in front, just to guys let you know how I was looking at this and how you should be interpreting this, because I tell everybody all the time, I understand we're trading at ES. You got to look at SPX and you got to look at VIX. If you're really professionally trading this, you need to look at these. I mean, this is what's up. This is the make it or break it for us. What's up, Raj? Sebastian? Oh, shit. Bryce? Zook? Now the whole crew's here. That's what's up. So that's how we're going to start this. Now, obviously, we had a big weekly inefficiency. Now, this is interesting because we talked about this yesterday at the in the post-market breakdown. I'm sorry, guys. This is my face is cutting this off. Let me just get rid of me. There we go. So the weekly inefficiency, we have a massive area on the weekly profile from 38 all the way to 65. This is a spot that needs to get filled in. This area has little resistance up to 65, which is the previous weekly point of control. And they will be targeting this area to fill in the market efficiency. Okay. All right. So sorry. You know, it's funny because when I go back and I look at this stuff, you know, like, oh man, it's crazy seeing it in hindsight, right? So here we go. All right. So here's the next one. And again, I want to show you guys, this is how the plan played out. So as usual, I post the TPO in here, at least the daily, but I wanted to post the weekly. And we talked about this, right? And so this is the same thing, 38 to 65. More than likely, they'll get it filled in. And we had this massive area of sellers right here on the TPO. So if you guys see this stuff and I start to circle these areas like this, there's a reason for that, right? This is a massive selling activity. They will more than likely get a reaction. We had all our important levels there. And when I saw sellers were there previously, this is why I assumed that we would get a pretty solid reaction. Now, we closed the day here, and yes, we had NVIDIA earnings, but again, we trade the cash session, and we'll see how tomorrow plays out, and we're going to get into that here shortly, okay? So let's go here. So here we go. So VIX was kind of the biggie for us on the guide. We knew that we were breaking out above a certain area, right? We were above 69.03, and we'll get into the breakout pivot here soon. But VIX was the other big kicker for us. So VIX is currently suppressed. Yesterday, it pushed down substantially and created a massive tailwind for the indices higher, right? So here's the tailwind, right? If we have lower support area that absolutely is tested at 1858, and if it breaks below 1858, it can come swiftly lower. That is this area here. That was the 4 hour. We weren't even there yet at the time of writing, right? So the guide, as long as it stays below 1962, if you guys remember, 1962 was the big one that took us up to the 20s, right? So we closed below it yesterday. As long as we stay below that, the ES will continue to drift up. If they push under 1909 and specifically 1858, we will create a significant tailwind for more upside. Okay, so here we go. Check it out. Boom. Here is today's VIX. I took this after the market closed, right? I'm not going to read everything to you again. You can clearly see that we stayed underneath 1962 all day, came down, held the 1858 for just a moment, got a little pop here, and again started to cascade down into our 1756. The moment that we broke 1858, I was like, okay, this thing's not coming down, right? Like I was kind of watching this whole area, and really it was the push below 1909. I'm like, okay. And then obviously below 1858, I'm like, I don't know, it's probably not coming. And we didn't, as you guys know, we definitely did not come down today. But again, the plan guided us, right? The VIX was a great tell for us. We stayed below our big daily. And again, I'm not going to bullshit you guys. I lost a few bucks today shorting, right? Because I was, I'm looking, we had a massive gap fill. I'm trying to get that pulled down. I wanted to fill in some areas here. Didn't lose a lot. They took my lunch money. But at the same time, not every day's perfect. It was my first losing day in 2 weeks. So with that being said, the plan actually helped me, even though I should have been long all day. The plan actually helped me not get just completely annihilated because I was watching VIX and watching a few other things. So here, we'll go ahead and check this out, right? So let's go ahead and go into this area here. So check this out. This is right at the beginning, right? So the detailed trade plan. We are currently drifting to the upside. We are above our significant momentum shift pivots. We just talked about those earlier. 57, 83, and 03. Momentum is currently to the upside from a small time frame perspective. Well, I think we all can agree with that, especially because we closed above this area here, right? So here we go. The fifth approach in the breakout. We had the 69.28 and 69.32. We have a massive options pivot at 32, and the highest untested daily in the 50-day moving average is at 28. So we continue to bump our head here. This is our fifth time approaching, and we will more than likely break this spot. Look at this. They hit it once, twice, and actually right here is 3 times, 4 times, and this was the 5th time that they hit it this morning. Had a slight pullback, and then at the open, they just gassed it, right? Because, 5 touches, if you can't reject it, you're out. We're going to the moon, right? But again, I was hoping for a small pullback. It is what it is. Boy can dream, right? So, but this was a great, area for us to kind of keep an eye on. And for those of you who are in the room who are with me, I kept saying we need to give under 28. We're going to fill this gap because we had a lot of room to go under 28. The gap fill was 04 or something like that. So if you shorted under 28, then you were good to go for what is that, 24 points or something like that. So not too shabby. It gave us a lot of room, and we knew 28 was the big above below level for us, and they continued to push higher, right? So let's go into the next one. So here's the trade. Here's the untested 4-hour, which was the next resistance in the trade plan. Now this is pre-market, and this is right above our 28 daily, right? So they actually missed this by about 2 points, not even. They hit, the level was at 38. We played 36.25, and they pulled back for about for a little over 12 points here. But here was the real setup, right? If price reacts here, look for us to get back below 28 and ultimately 23 for continuation lower. Well, as you can see, we never did, right? So we knew immediately right now, this is not going to hold, or this is not going to play. This is not going to send us down, right? And we are above 28. Let's look to go up a little bit higher. Now, again, for me, I was thinking, let's short a little bit higher, right? Didn't even think that we would just gap and go all day on a slow grind like we did, but at least didn't start shorting just right out of the gate, which was a good thing. All right, so here we go. So let's check this out. So where am I at here? Let's go to the next one. Here we go. All right. So here was the big week. Here was another weekly. So we had 2 spots essentially that we were looking at for resistance, right? We had the 69.43 weekly and our big spot up here at 69.64. So I even let it be known right here. This is not my favorite, but to keep it in context, if this level plays, we're looking to get back below 38, and then obviously, and much lower. However, if they move higher, they will continue to clean up the market profile efficiency running into the big call wall at 52. So we're going to get into that here real soon, right? So you can see right here, I actually was short this trade, and I let it poke above. I took it the first time right here when it touched, and I got short 40. They ended up stopping me out, and then I got back in when they started to come back down at this weekly right here, and was able to bring it all the way back down to 39.30, which was a nice little score. So that was good. And, I was very happy about that. And anybody in the room who was trading with me, I think we all kind of grabbed this little one. But again, I wanted lower. It was a weekly. I wanted lower. I wanted to fill the gap. It is what it is. So we know right away that didn't exactly work out the way we thought. Actually, let me come back to that, because here is one reason why I thought that we could get some momentum off of that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been short. So as you guys know, I've been talking about the 69.39 level on SPX. And that was the big level that we talked about in the very beginning. That I said, based on SPX, we could push to all-time highs if we get above 69.14. If that happens, we have a massive area at 69.39. I expect a reaction here, right? But if it stays above this, we could push to all-time highs. Well, did we get the reaction here? Absolutely. So, of course, I'm short on ES because, we just kind of went above the weekly, and then now we're starting to come below this big, massive area here. But we didn't get any follow through on this. Like you guys saw, I think I played it for 14 points, and that was all she wrote. And again, we continued to push higher. Okay, so awesome. Great deal. At least we know stuff plays out here. All right, so the next one here. Here was the deal. Now, this is the context off the weekly. Just figured I'd show you here. If they move higher than this weekly, we will continue to clean up the market profile efficiency running into the big call wall at 52. Well, this was the big call wall at 52, was this highlighted line, and it played as well, right? But it just didn't give us the Momo down like we thought. At this point, we were back above everything, 28, the weekly at 43. We're continuing to push higher, and off we go, okay? So I'm just kind of showing you guys how you need to look at this stuff. Just because the call walls are there doesn't necessarily mean they're shorts. Perhaps they're even long targets, right? They're targets to the upside if we know momentum's going to the upside. So here's the big one. So this is kind of funny. So this is the big one that we've been waiting on for a long time. This was the magnet. This is where we said this is more than likely targeting this area. This is the deal. This is what we're after. Well, believe it or not, they came up here right at the close. This was literally at like, I don't know, 350 or 355, something like that. And they filled me, right? It didn't actually do it was right at the end. We had NVIDIA earnings after the bell, so I didn't hold it. But this was the spot here because it was my level. So I had to test. I had to let it go. I put it on a 5-point stop. And I think I ended up getting, I don't know, about 7 points out of it. Unfortunately, I was trying to pull 10 out of it. And it just didn't work out because it was just too late in the day. So this was the level that I was preaching about over and over again. And we want to see this level play. Now, what is going to happen here? I don't know. Right now, we do know for one thing's for certain. We just had NVIDIA earnings. They gassed the market and they pushed up. However, our daily closed below this area. Okay. So now what I want to do with you guys, because I got to be honest, I'm shooting from the hip here because we had such a slow, grindy day today. I'm, was thinking about how to work these trade plans because I knew we were going to run about 10 minutes short. So I thought we'd look at a few other things and just kind of talk about potentially what could happen tomorrow and exactly what NVIDIA did and look at the SPX and look at ES and kind of put the two together. Also, another cool thing for those of you guys who are into crypto, Bitcoin had a massive push today. So we can talk about that. Ethereum was up 12%. Bitcoin was up 8%. They retested the lows of our big levels. And so we're going to buzz through all this stuff so we can burn another 10 minutes up. Okay. So that'll be fun. So let's first off start with ES. Okay. So here's the deal. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of all this stuff. So this was our big, massive daily up here, 69.6450, right? Not only that, but we have the big weekly at 69.63 and our monthly here. Okay. Now, technically for me, I need us to get above this before I feel confident for pushing new highs. Okay. So they came down here and they have really started to lose support down here, and they came down, they made a higher low, and then they held this leg. Then we sweep the lows, etc. And we went all the way down in the overnight sessions and they started to reclaim. Now they didn't do all this on SPX because SPX is purely just a cash session. Sorry. I didn't realize it was not there. So we really want to see, for ES to continue to move higher, they really have to get above 69.64 and push. As you can see, the market closed at 69.57, but the cash session closed below this important pivot. So this will be very important for us going into tomorrow. Okay. Not only do we have a massive gap fill below us, but this is our big resistance, in my opinion. And this, like I've said time and time again, this is the make it or break it level for us. Okay. So it was really interesting the way they kind of use the heat-seeking missile, as you could say, to come right up here to the 69.65, right where we called, right where we said, hey, they're going to have to clean up this market inefficiency. I mean, it couldn't have been any better. It reminded me of Wile E. Coyote and the big magnet, right? And that was kind of what it felt like today. It was just a slow grind as they pulled really close into this particular area. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with NVIDIA earnings after we open tomorrow. So let's go ahead and take a look at NVIDIA earnings. Actually, I'm going to pull over SPX real fast just to kind of show you guys my thoughts here as well. So like I said before in the trade plan, and I've said it yesterday a couple times in the post-market breakdown, actually I've said it probably all week, we have not lost support yet on the daily time frame with SPX. SPX is without a doubt our lead. I mean, it is the indices, right? So SPX or ES is simply a derivative, and it's something that we trade because, it's much easier to trade futures than it is SPX as far as the way that day trading is concerned. And you can have lower margins, et cetera, whatever. And the leverage is better. So as you can see, they've held this daily support. We came down, we closed above it still. And then when they popped back up, they played this area. Yes, they swept, but that was a close above the support. So technically speaking, they could continue to just basically balance in here and make a new all-time high, which they've attempted to do today. Right. So this is the big area for me. That's the make it or break it. Like I've talked many times, let's just call it 69.40s area. Right. And let me go down to the smaller time frame here so you can see what's up. Right. They even actually did a nice little W out down here as they continue to accept value and balance around and push. Now, this is going to be really important for us tomorrow to understand our context for above or below. The differences between SPX is we technically have not lost support. But again, I want to keep one thing in mind for you guys. we are still in a massive balance area. Don't be shocked if we pull back, and don't be shocked if we go a little bit higher. I mean, if you look at the weekly time frame, and let me just pull this up for you guys so that you can get a really good concept of what I'm talking about here. We are still inside of all these weeklies. I mean, look at this. This is our current candle, right? So we actually pushed outside of this one, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeklies across, right? This is 2 months worth of range that we've just been bouncing around back and forth as price continues to accept value. Will we push a new all-time high? It's possible, right? But this is the really big spot for us to really be the determining factor, which is the 63.50 spot for ES, right? And so I wanted to show you that because I can show you on SPX, it's the same exact scenario. We've essentially just been traversing sideways for many months now. And are they accepting value to push higher? Well, they possibly could be. As you can see, they even played the weekly leg down here on SPX, which would give us the indication that they could possibly move higher. So we will see what happens tomorrow. Obviously, 69.14 is going to be our big above below, and they need to stay above 69.45. So as long as they stay above 45, we continue to keep the momentum to the upside. Okay. If they push below 14, they have some real work to do, as they have to come back down and test something to get propelled higher. Okay. So I will leave that with you guys on SPX. The next thing we're going to look at is NVIDIA, because I've been watching NVIDIA. I own some shares of NVIDIA. Of course, I'm watching it, kind of seeing what's going on here. And let me pull that up for you now. But I think this gives you a very clear picture of 69.14. So here we go with NVIDIA. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Okay. So I haven't recharted NVIDIA lately. This is still an old chart. Okay. But NVIDIA, this is a monthly. In NVIDIA, we have been balancing back and forth for 1, 2, 3, 4, going on 5 months. Okay. Once again, sideways action. Now, is this actually sideways action to the upside of accepting a value and then a massive breakout, or are they distributing? Well, there's no way to actually tell right now because we continue to hold support, which gives us the indication that we can continue to move to the upside. However, one thing I will tell you right here is there is an untested weekly or monthly at 202.49. So here's the thing. We haven't lost on the monthly time frame, so it could just be a speed bump in my opinion. But here's the interesting part. We actually played it perfectly in the for earnings. This is a massive high lost. They popped in here, they played it, and look at this. They've already retraced all their overnight push on the earnings already. So what is going to happen tomorrow? Well, we don't really know. But what I do know is ES closed below the significant area that we really needed to close above, in my opinion, to get a push higher. Now, am I just like super bearish right now? No, absolutely not. But I will obviously be watching this tomorrow to see where we open, because this was a major spot for me. This was the highest untested resistance. It's from a monthly time frame, and could potentially give us a pretty good smack. And if they come all the way back down here, we are still very much within the balance area, which is the same thing I was trying to represent for you guys on ES and SPX. Like, we're just in a sideways range right now as they continue to go test the highs, sweep the lows, et cetera, et cetera. So, this is very tough trading. And that was what I was trying to explain to you guys yesterday. This is some of the most difficult trading when you're range bound and you have these days where sometimes you don't break out of the entire day, or you just sweep below and you stay within the range. This is tough stuff. Okay. And this basically gives us the same possibility by looking at NVIDIA, because it's kind of propping the market up right now in a sense, right? I don't know if you guys have looked at some of the other Mag 7 stuff, but they look like shit. Okay. Like, they look really bad. It's like Microsoft looks terrible. Meta doesn't look great. I don't think Amazon looks great, if I recall. Yeah, these all look really bad. Google's like holding it up, but these guys are not looking super awesome right now. Look at Microsoft. Netflix looks like dog shit. Tesla's looking okay, but it doesn't really carry much weight anymore. I think it's like 2 or 3% right now. And Apple looks pretty good, right? But for the most part, it's like a 50-50 distribution here. Okay. So with that being said, all eyes on NVIDIA tomorrow and where we open up, okay? Because right now, for me, this could totally hold. It absolutely could hold, right? So don't get it twisted. I just know that this is a big spot. And so if we wake up tomorrow and NVIDIA is down, there is a good chance that we could rotate back down, and we didn't close above the 65. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just giving you guys some ideas here, because we never know until it happens, right? A lot happens in the overnight session. And so, I just try to think proactively here. And that is one reason why I wait for the cash open, because it kind of lets all the dust settle and then we can kind of figure out what we're going to do from that point on. So that is essentially covering, and we're going to get to Bitcoin here in a second, but that essentially covers you guys for, we've talked about SPX and the difference between SPX and ES. I mean, it's fast. I'll just be honest. It's fast. Okay. The massive balance range. We went through VIX and we talked about that because that's a huge lead for us right now. That's a big indicator for us. And we're coming down here. And one of the things that I forgot to talk about with VIX, let me show you guys this, because this is kind of important. And I'm going to touch on it tomorrow in the trade plan. So right now we're still technically trending down on VIX. Okay. We can't seem to gain. We close lower than here. Again, close lower than here. We're making lower highs. We're coming down. Okay. Let me go ahead and blow this chart up. Okay. But one of the areas that I want you guys to keep an eye on is 1765. Okay. This is a big spot. As we come in here, it's very clear that this is a monster spot. It's very much untested. Okay. And this is our big monthly pivot that we've been playing for months. As you guys know, we've been talking about this pivot really since January. Okay. So maybe even before that, before that, we've been talking about it since December. So with that being said, this is an important level for us to continue to keep monitoring. And again, above or below this area seems to always be very significant. So you pay attention to this spot. I do think this area can get a reaction. Now, if we open below it, we don't have to worry about it, right? But just keep an eye on it because this could provide a reaction. And this may not be the end-all be-all spot, but if it gives us a nice little pop, it'll be enough to bring the indices back down so that we can ride it down or look for a good buy spot. Okay. So I want to just put all this in context for you guys because it's super important, right? Like these are all the things that I watch so that I can give you guys, accurate information. And obviously, hopefully you guys are taking notes and you start doing this on your own. Okay. So the last thing that we're going to look at, just because it's fun, is Bitcoin and Ethereum. So check this out. So Ethereum actually came down and played a sick ass monthly leg. Check this out. This thing is this is the jizzle down here. They played the 1793, call it 1800 leg to the all-time high, right? They held it. They played it great. They're holding it down here at something decent. I actually bought down here today. I didn't buy, at 3 a.m, but I got it, which I thought was pretty good. I'm up like 6 or 7% on it, and it went 12% today. So let me go ahead and show you what it did. So this was the original pop. We came up, we came down, we retested this monthly, but more importantly, we had a great daily leg down here at 1826, which was the awesome retest. I did not buy first touch. I waited to see if this was going to accept value down here. I basically got in it somewhere around, I don't know, right here somewhere. I don't know, about 1950, something like that. Once I saw her start to go, I think this can hold. And the reason why I think this can hold, and maybe it won't hold forever. Maybe it's still going to come down. There is a possibility that Bitcoin can come lower, but I think Bitcoin's in a pretty good spot to buy some right now. And so I did, right? So I bought $5,000 worth and I'll show you why. So I love this spot here. I've always loved this spot. This is a massive area that took us to the all-time highs prior. This was a big monthly level for me at 61,300. They came down, they played it. They did the same exact thing. They played it. We had a monthly, weekly here. I've liked this spot. I've been talking about it for months. I've been talking about it since we were way up here back in November. So, this was the spot I liked before we played. I tried to get to 100 Gs. It didn't quite go. It only popped 25%, came back down. This was the next spot. So, of course, I'm going to buy the next spot, right? So here we go. Same thing. Popped up, got rejected from this area, came down, big daily leg, played it, held it, boom, we're off. So we had the same, basic concept that I just showed you with Ethereum, and we're going back up. Now, why did I jump in this? Well, I've been kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with the ES, what happened with, inflation, et cetera, et cetera. And, there's a very possible chance that Bitcoin could come to 30 to 50 grand. It's possible. That would be a 75% pullback if it comes to 50 grand. But this is a 50% retracement. I'm a big Bitcoin guy. I'm a holder for sure. And so listen, buying at 65 grand doesn't scare me at all. I'll just buy more if it goes lower, but I do truly think that this spot could actually bring us back up. As long as we can pop above 71,000 here, we should be able to get back into our 80s range, but this will be the major test for us to get above. This will be a big breakout spot for us, which is the 71.5 area. And you can see it was the same concept over here. They kept a lid on it for a long time. And then once they got a hold, they got above this thing just absolutely just broke out hard. So this will be the next level for us to watch right here. If they can't do it, they come lower. If they come lower, it is what it is. I'm I'm a maxi. I'm the kind of guy that thinks Bitcoin's going to 1 million. So I'm not scared to say it. I'll say it out loud. I think obviously 250s first, but you know, it is what it is. So with that being said, I think we covered a lot today. It was a very difficult day to trade. It was slow. It was grindy, relative low volume. It was just unbelievable. You know, we had a lot of statistics come out saying that it was like Edgeful came out and said like 89% chance we were going to fill the gap today. Didn't happen. It certainly gave me a little FOMO. But again, you know, that's how data works. 89% chance is not 100. And so, you know, we have to keep that kind of stuff in mind. We play statistics. We have to prepare for the loss, no matter how big the edge is. And today just happened to be one of those days. You trust the data because it works 89% of the time, or your process works 70% of the time. You build in these losses into your strategy, no matter what. You always keep your risk appropriate, and then you live to fight another day. And that's what we all did in the room. So I salute all you guys who did that with me today. And that's where we're going to end it. So very interesting day. I've shown you all the places that you need to pay attention to tomorrow by the time we open. And this will make perfect sense in the trade plan. I don't need to be so elaborate tomorrow like I was today. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with NVIDIA. Keep an eye on VIX, and we'll go from there. So together, you and I, we conquered the markets. You guys have a great evening, and cheers.